Anyone who's been the fake heir to a wealthy family knows the drill. The day the real son is found, you're supposed to brace yourself for getting kicked out, plan your escape, and even scrub your room clean of any skeletons in the closet. But I did the exact opposite. The night I found out they were looking for him, I consummated my engagement with my fiancée. Then, without a shred of guilt, I treated the company like my personal training ground, secretly documenting every key account and every flawed decision. So when they finally put on their stone faces, handed the title of heir back to Leo, and tossed me a $50 million check as some grand gesture of charity, I could sign it without a moment's hesitation and walk away with a head full of trade secrets and a wealth of hands-on experience, ready to make a clean getaway. Because true wealth isn't the Walton family name. It's my own mind, which has learned to break free from the script. I was switched at birth when I was 3 years old. Luckily, the family that took me in was one of the wealthiest in the city, the Waltons. I understood from a young age that I was just an imposter, a counterfeit heir. I was also keenly aware that one day, the couple raising me would uncover my true identity. So, while I still had the temporary superpower of their wealth at my disposal, I prepared a special gift for them well in advance. The moment they decided to kick me to the curb for their biological son, I would be ready to seize everything they had without hesitation, and I wouldn't feel a shred of guilt about it. On my 20th birthday, I discovered Mr. and Mrs. Walton were secretly searching for their long-lost biological son. I didn't hesitate for even a second. That very night, I solidified my engagement by sleeping with my fiancée, Olivia, before she could learn the truth. The next day, my identity was publicly exposed, and the fake heir mask was ripped away. The family casually tossed a check at me. "Lucas, here's $50 million," they said. "Take it and get out. Don't get in Leo's way." I didn't have to think twice. I scribbled my name, grabbed the check, and walked out. It was almost laughable. Whoever stayed behind would have to deal with my fiancée's male assistant, that poor scholarship kid, and her childhood first love. I was happy to leave that romantic battlefield for the real heir to enjoy. I was nothing more than a tragic side character in some romance novel. According to the original script, after the party, Olivia was supposed to fall for a poor college student working as a waiter. Right after that, my status as the fake heir would be exposed, thrusting me into a storm of controversy. From that point on, my miserable life as a pawn was set to begin, a mere stepping stone for the heroine and someone for the hero to crush under his heel. What a joke. If I already knew I was just a side character, why on earth would I stick to the script? The smart move is to get what you can and then make a graceful exit. "Lucas, what's on your mind?" My fiancée, Olivia Vanderbilt, noticed I was distracted and came to sit beside me. Her custom-tailored gown showcased her figure perfectly. Under the ballroom lights, her exquisitely maintained skin glowed like warm, polished jade. She'd had a little to drink at the party, and the blush on her cheeks was like a blooming rose. She was breathtakingly beautiful. I caught myself staring for a second too long and quickly cleared my throat. "It's nothing, just a bit tired." "Olivia, why don't you go take a shower?" Olivia shot me a look. "What? You already think I smell like wine." I immediately put on my most sincere expression. "Of course not. It's just getting late, and I thought we should get some rest." Olivia didn't overthink it, flashing me a brilliant smile as she headed for the bathroom. The moment her elegant figure disappeared behind the door, I stood up. I casually scooped her phone off the coffee table and walked out onto the terrace. According to the original script, Jerry, the poor scholarship kid she'd just met at the party, would be calling any minute now. Then Olivia, hearing he'd sprained his ankle, would rush out in a panic to take care of him. Well, since I was on my way out anyway, there was no way I was leaving with the distinction of having been cheated on. The night breeze brushed against my face. I had just stepped onto the terrace when the phone screen lit up. The caller ID read, "Jerry." Everything was going exactly according to plan. I took a deep breath, swiped to answer, and pressed the phone to my ear. A man's voice, deliberately low and feigning weakness, came from the other end. "Olivia, I twisted my ankle on my way back. It hurts really bad, and I'm all alone in my dorm. Can you come spend the night with me?" I let out a cold laugh. Who the hell did this guy think he was, calling her Olivia so casually. The person on the other end was clearly not expecting a man to answer and was struck silent. After a few seconds, he finally recovered, his tone hardening. "Who is this? Put Olivia on." I replied coolly. "This is Lucas Walton, Olivia Vanderbilt's fiancé." A grown man sprains his ankle, and instead of going to the hospital or seeing the campus doctor, he calls my fiancé in the middle of the night to come wait on him. It sounds like it's not your ankle that's sprained, it's your head. Hearing who I was, Jerry immediately dropped the pathetic act. A bizarre sense of superiority crept into his voice. "Oh, so you're the fiancé Olivia told me about. She said herself she finds you dull and boring." I paused for a beat, and his tone grew even more arrogant. "Whatever. I can't be bothered talking to a guy like you. Just put Olivia on. I want to see if she chooses to come take care of me, or if she chooses you." I scoffed. "That confident, are you? Fine. But tonight isn't a good time. It's getting late, and Olivia and I have our own evening program to get to. We can have your little competition some other time." The words were barely out of my mouth before he grew frantic. "Evening program? What do you mean? What kind of program?" A slow smile spread across my face. "What kind of program do you think an engaged couple gets up to in the middle of the night? Olivia is my fiancée. It's perfectly natural for us to be doing things to deepen our bond. Did nobody ever teach you that? You bastard. If you touch a single hair on her head, I'll—" He was gearing up to scream at me, but I had already blocked his number, deleted the contact, and powered the phone off. Then I leisurely strolled back into the room and placed the phone right back where I found it on the coffee table. The sound of running water trickled from the bathroom, and steam wafted from under the door. With the shower running, Olivia hadn't heard a thing. I went to the other bathroom to take a quick shower myself. By the time I returned to the bedroom, Olivia was just stepping out, wrapped in a bathrobe. Her silk robe was tied loosely, and her damp hair cascaded over her shoulders, carrying the fresh scent of her shower. Her face, flushed from the steam, had a seductive allure that was more potent than usual. I stepped forward and wrapped my arm around her slender waist, leaning in to whisper in her ear, "Olivia, we're getting married next month. Both our parents have been nagging us about grandchildren for ages." At this, Olivia's face flushed crimson all the way to her ears. Normally, she would have pushed me away, flustered and annoyed. But the wine tonight had clearly relaxed her inhibitions. She only squirmed a little in my arms and mumbled, "I thought we were supposed to wait until the wedding night." I put on a show of being unable to restrain myself. "I wanted to wait, I really did. But you're just too beautiful tonight. If I had to hold back any longer, what kind of man would that make me?" After all our years of engagement, Olivia's feelings for me were naturally quite deep. Besides, the story had just begun. That poor kid Jerry was nowhere near important enough to threaten my position. And most importantly, she never got that phone call. I wasn't woken until nearly noon the next day by a frantic ringing of the doorbell. I threw on a robe and ambled downstairs. When I opened the door, my parents were standing there, and with them was a tall, skinny young man. The young man wore old, faded clothes and looked frail, keeping his head bowed with a timid, nervous air. This was him, the long-lost true heir, Leo Walton. I feigned ignorance, stepping aside to let them in. "Dad, Mom? What brings you here so early?" Mr. and Mrs. Walton exchanged a grave look and led the young man into the living room. Once we were all seated, Mrs. Walton spoke with solemnity. "We came today because we have something very important to announce." She gently pushed Leo, who had been hiding behind her, forward. Her voice choked with emotion as she explained, "This young man is our biological son, Leo. We confirmed it. He suffered so much all these years." Mr. Walton's gaze then landed sharply on me, and his tone was absolute. "Lucas, the truth is out. You've lived with us for many years, and you've done a fine job managing the company. But the position of heir to the Walton family rightfully belongs to Leo." Hearing his words, I felt nothing at all. As far as I was concerned, I couldn't blame him for this. In the original story, blood proved thicker than water. To prevent chaos at the company, I was supposed to slowly transition power to allow Leo a smooth takeover of the Walton Group. But in Leo's eyes, my careful planning was just proof that I was clinging to power. Once he had full control, he started to undermine me at every turn. I had to keep the company afloat while constantly watching my back for Leo's next betrayal. To make matters worse, my fiancée, Olivia, started getting entangled with the scholarship student she sponsored, her ever-attentive male assistant, and her first love, who had just returned from overseas. At first, Leo was wary of the Vanderbilts backing me, but as soon as he saw the cracks forming in my relationship with Olivia, he dropped the polite facade. Trapped between threats at work and at home, I was left isolated and helpless, ultimately forced to make a quiet exit. But that was the book's ending. As for now, whoever wanted this dumpster fire of a company could have it. I wouldn't lift a finger. I didn't say another word. I simply extended a hand to the true heir, Leo, and said with complete sincerity, "I'm sorry for occupying your place all these years. I'll leave right now." My straightforward compliance seemed to stun the Waltons, and even Leo himself. Mr. and Mrs. Walton quickly recovered. However, a look of immense relief washing over their faces. "Lucas, I knew you were a sensible young man," Mr. Walton said, pausing for a moment. "Our only remaining concern is the alliance with the Vanderbilts. After all, you and Olivia have always been so close." Before he could finish, a frantic, angry voice called out from upstairs. "Lucas!" Olivia came rushing down the stairs, out of breath. She had thrown on one of my shirts over the bathrobe she was still wearing. Her hair was a mess, but her disheveled state couldn't hide the fury on her face. She stormed right up to me, shoving her phone in my face. "Why did you hang up on him?" she demanded, her eyes blazing. "And then you blocked him? Do you have any idea how rude that is?" Her tirade caught Mr. Walton's next words in his throat. I just leaned back against the sofa, gave a lazy wave of my hand, and smiled. "Hang on, we could talk about minor things like that later." The phrase, minor things, made Olivia explode. "Minor? You have a nerve to call this." Before she could finish, Mrs. Walton stepped forward, cutting her off. "Olivia, please calm down. We're here today because we've learned that Lucas is not our biological son. We were concerned about what this meant for your engagement, but it seems your relationship isn't as strong as we thought. That being the case, let's just call off the engagement. If the Vanderbilts and the Waltons still wish to maintain their alliance, perhaps you could consider Leo." Her tone had become noticeably lighter. Olivia's public outburst had clearly erased any lingering concerns they might have had. The sudden news left the enraged Olivia completely stunned. Seeing that she didn't immediately object, Mrs. Walton briskly pulled a prepared check from her purse and slapped it on the table in front of me. "Lucas, here's $50 million. Consider it payment for raising you all these years. Leave the Walton family, make your own way, and don't cause any more trouble for Leo." I glanced down at the thin piece of paper, then looked up at Olivia. She had a complicated expression, biting her lip as if she wanted to speak but couldn't find the words. Without a moment of hesitation, I reached out and took the check. I picked up the pen from the table and signed my name neatly on the designated line of the severance agreement. Folding the check and tucking it into my robe pocket, I said with earnest sincerity, "All right, I understand. Thank you for your kindness in raising me all these years." With that, I turned and strode out the door without giving anyone a second glance, not even bothering to pack the clothes in my closet upstairs. As I left, I could faintly hear my adoptive parents comforting the real heir, Leo. Olivia finally snapped out of it, yelling after me, "Wait, Lucas, stop. You need to explain yourself. What was that call with Jerry really about?" I didn't break my stride, but a faint smile played on my lips. There was nothing left to explain. Let someone else jump into that messy pool. I, for one, was out. The scene was one of turquoise waters, blue skies, and golden sands. 3 days later, I was stretched out on a lounge chair on a Miami beach, enjoying a perfectly executed massage from a professional. A warm, salty breeze drifted over my skin, carrying the soft rustle of palm trees from a nearby grove. On the table beside me sat a chilled coconut, a straw, and a tiny paper umbrella sticking out of it. Now, this was living. With $50 million in my pocket, my philosophy had been simplified to one phrase: seized the day. I was just drifting off, practically melting in the afternoon sun, when a shadow fell over me. The masseuse's hands paused. I frowned in annoyance and lazily opened my eyes. Silhouetted against the sun stood a beautiful, though clearly unhappy, young woman. She was wearing an impeccably tailored and expensive black dress, which looked utterly out of place on the relaxed, sandy beach. I froze for a second. Wasn't that my sister, the one studying abroad? Chloe. That's right. I wasn't an only child in the Walton household. I had a sister 2 years my junior, and she was no imposter. She was the real, 100% genuine article. But Chloe had been sent to study abroad 2 years ago. In the original script, her role was so minor she was practically non-existent, so I never expected to see her again. The sweet, innocent girl from 2 years ago had truly blossomed. Her skin was fair and smooth, her figure tall and poised. She had grown into a stunning young woman. Seeing that I recognized her, Chloe promptly plopped down in the sand, grabbed my head, and started wailing. "Lucas, how can you be lounging here on vacation? Our family is about to go under. You're the one who told me that the Walton Group was your creation, your masterpiece." She cried. "You said you poured everything you had into it and swore you'd take it to the next level. Now it's on the verge of collapse, and you're just sitting here doing nothing?" I made a non-committal sound, sinking deeper into my chair. I took a slow sip of my iced coconut. "You're right," I said calmly. But after leaving the company, I realized something. Life isn't just about work. Soaking up the sun, drinking coconut water, just enjoying myself, it's not half bad. "Lucas, don't just give up like this," Chloe cried, crouching beside me in a panic. Her face was scrunched up with worry as she tugged on my arm, as if she feared I'd simply waste away on that beach forever. "Lucas, I know," she said, her voice softening. "I know you must be hurting and resentful. I resent how cruel Mom and Dad were, kicking you out just like that. But no matter what they think, I, Chloe Walton, am unconditionally on your side. Even if we're not related by blood, you'll always be my only brother. If I hadn't been overseas, I would have given Mom, Dad, and that Leo a piece of my mind. And as for that shameless Olivia, I swear I'll find a chance to slap her across the face for you." Watching her shadow box with the air, I gave a lazy wave of my hand and chuckled. Okay, I appreciate the sentiment. But it's not that I don't want to help. I signed the agreement. It's there in black and white. I have completely severed all ties with the Walton family. I'm an outsider now. On what grounds, and in what capacity, could I possibly interfere in your family's business? When it comes to the internal management of the Walton Group, I don't have the right to say a single word. "Oh," Chloe said, deflating like a popped balloon. She opened her mouth, but nothing came out. Her shoulders slumped and the light in her eyes faded as she mumbled. "So I guess there's really no hope." But just a few seconds later, she bounced back in front of me, a mischievous glint in her eye. "Lucas, actually, it's not a complete dead end." She started trying to sweet-talk me. "Look, legally and biologically, you're not my brother anymore. So if I married you, you could come back as the Walton family's son-in-law and take control of the company, right?" I nearly choked on my coconut water, coughing until I couldn't breathe. "Chloe, have you lost your mind? Do you even hear what you're saying?" An unnatural blush spread across Chloe's face, but she stuck her chin out defiantly. "I'm not wrong. The shareholders and executives all know what you're capable of. If you agree to come back, they won't care about the details. They'll welcome you with open arms if it means making more money. Besides, look at yourself now. You can't even afford to buy a multi-million-dollar mansion on a whim. Are you telling me you actually enjoy this miserable lifestyle?" I took a deep breath, my tone turning serious. "Chloe, you know this isn't about the money." Seeing that I wasn't falling for it, Chloe dropped the act, her expression turning stubborn. "Lucas, I'm serious. Growing up, Mom and Dad barely paid any attention to me. You were the one who always looked out for me. You're my favorite person in the world," she declared. "Since we're not related, why can't I marry you?" Seeing the genuine conviction in her eyes, I softened my tone and held up a hand to stop her. "Chloe, I understand how you feel. I'm not going back, but I will help you in a different way." Chloe looked confused. "What do you mean?" I spoke slowly. If you want to take control of the company, you don't need to rely on anyone. Why can't you be the one to turn things around? Don't forget, you are an heir to the Walton family, too. Me? She repeated, her brow furrowed in concentration. But I just got back. I don't know the first thing about the domestic market, and I have no idea how the internal politics of the company work. I cut her off. You can learn what you don't know. You can figure out what you don't understand. I can teach you all of it. Besides, you're the one who said Leo was useless. Do you really need me to personally step in and clean up a useless person's mess? Chloe pouted, clearly disappointed, but her spirits lifted quickly. Okay then, Lucas. Starting today, I'm coming to see you every single day, and you're not allowed to sneak away. I didn't know whether to laugh or cry, but I agreed. Don't worry, I'll be right here to back you up. For the next several weeks, I said a temporary goodbye to the sun and sand and focused all my energy on teaching Chloe. I systematically fed her everything I knew. The personalities and capabilities of each department head, how to read market signals and predict trends, how to exploit conflicts on the board to build alliances, how to dismantle Leo's flashy, substance-less projects, and, most importantly, how to build her own loyal team. Chloe was naturally gifted, and now, with her back against the wall, she progressed at an astonishing rate. She methodically laid her groundwork within the company, secretly gathering hard evidence of Leo's deals that damaged their interests while simultaneously leaking stories of his incompetence and scandals to the press. Finally, after round of board inquiries and intense public pressure, Leo was abandoned by everyone. The very projects he had pushed through to impress Olivia became the final straws that broke him. Not even Mr. Walton could protect him. Leo was completely removed from the core power structure of the Walton Group, left with a hollow title and no real influence. And Chloe, in his place, took firm control of the Walton Group. Meanwhile, at the Vanderbilt estate, Olivia was lying in bed, irritably scrolling through her phone. The screen showed an image of Leo swarmed by reporters, the accompanying headlines dripping with sarcasm. Ever since Leo's fall from grace, he had become a completely different person. He was no longer the gentle soul who tried so hard to maintain a dignified, air-like composure around her. Instead, he had become volatile and paranoid, prone to emotional outbursts, and he constantly came to her to complain or beg for help, driving her absolutely crazy. And then there was Jerry, the brilliant scholarship student she had once championed. He was even worse. He kept bringing her an endless stream of business proposals to invest in, every single one of which was a catastrophic failure. The moment she cut him off, he showed his true colors and tried to run off with the last of her money, which sent her into a rage. She called the police and had him arrested right then and there. After that, it was her incredibly attentive male assistant. He actually had the audacity to try and hit on Chloe after a joint meeting between the Vanderbilt and Walton groups. Olivia would have remained completely oblivious if Chloe hadn't dropped by specifically to taunt her about it. The assistant was now fired and blacklisted from the industry. Like the receding tide, all she had left around her was a ring of dirty sea foam. Olivia walked to her floor-to-ceiling window and stared out at the glittering, cold New York skyline, an overwhelming sense of emptiness and failure washing over her. She couldn't help but think back to the time when she and I were engaged. She had found me a bit dull back then, always buried in my work. Yet I had always been the one to handle everything, keeping her life stable and orderly. I knew all of her favorite things, and whenever she was in trouble, I was the first one there. The way I looked at her had always been with a gentle, focused adoration. But she had been so well protected, so sheltered, that she had taken it all for granted. And now, as she rubbed her temples in frustration, a feeling she didn't dare to examine too closely, yet couldn't suppress, crept into her heart. It was the feeling of regret. She suddenly thought of the home she had once shared with me, and a wave of warmth and nostalgia washed over her. The next morning, as Olivia was engrossed in her work, there was a soft knock on her office door. Her executive secretary entered with a knowing smile. "Olivia, I have some good news. Are you interested?" Having been her secretary for years, The two were less like a boss and an employee and more like best friends who told each other everything. Seeing the conspiratorial look on her secretary's face, Olivia couldn't help but smile. "All right, stop being mysterious. Spit it out." The secretary lowered her voice, her words bubbling with excitement. "I just got a tip from the airline. That first love you're always thinking about is coming back. His flight lands at JFK at 3 this afternoon." At her words, Olivia's eyes lit up. Ryan, the handsome upperclassman who had made her heart race as a teenager. In her mind, he was her first love, pure and untainted. Perhaps seeing the gentle, charming Ryan again would help her recapture that simple, wonderful feeling and escape the mess her life had become. She immediately shot up from her chair, straightening her hair in a compact mirror and touching up her makeup to hide the exhaustion. She had to restore the polished glamour befitting a Vanderbilt. Have the car brought around, she commanded. "We're going to the airport." In the car, Olivia was already planning the evening in her head. Which restaurant to take Ryan for dinner, what they would talk about, how to perfectly cultivate the romantic atmosphere of a long-overdue reunion. But when she stood at the international arrivals gate, scanning the crowd with a mix of excitement and nerves for that familiar handsome face, her eyes landed on someone else entirely. It was me, Lucas. I was wearing a fitted linen shirt and slacks, looking crisp and relaxed as I casually strolled out of the arrivals gate, pulling a suitcase behind me. Olivia froze on the spot, the look of eager anticipation on her face hardening into one of pure shock. She whipped her head around to stare at her secretary. She spoke through gritted teeth, her voice a low hiss. "What is this? You said Ryan was coming back today." Startled by Olivia's sharp glare, the secretary blinked in confusion. "Huh? Ryan? Who's Ryan?" Her gaze drifted, landing on the limited edition diamond watch on Olivia's wrist, a gift from me years ago. Then her eyes flickered to the pearl earrings Olivia was wearing, another custom piece I had commissioned from a master jeweler. "That explains it," the secretary said. "I was wondering why you started wearing the watch Lucas gave you again. And yesterday, you put that jade sculpture he gave you back on your desk. I just assumed he was the one you really wanted to see. So when I heard Lucas was returning from his trip, I rushed to tell you." As her secretary looked on, slightly embarrassed, Olivia subconsciously touched the watch on her wrist. The saying is true. Sometimes an outsider can see things more clearly than the person living them. In that moment, her secretary's innocent words struck her with the force of a hammer. She realized she had been desperately trying to find a replacement, trying to fill the void I left with Leo, Jerry, and now Ryan. But if she had truly moved on from me, why did she feel the need for a substitute? It could only mean one thing. She was the one who had never really let go. The realization made Olivia's face burn with shame. But as she watched my retreating figure in the distance, a powerful impulse surged through her. Now that she knew she had been wrong, could she really just let things stay this way? No, she had to do something. She took a deep breath, hurried past her secretary, and her heels clicked against the floor as she rushed after me. "Lucas," she called out, her voice trembling slightly with nerves. I stopped and turned, surprised to see my former fiancée. "Olivia, what are you doing here?" I asked. She looked up at me, struggling to maintain her composure. "I was wrong," she said. "I was so selfish. I only cared about superficial things, and I said and did so many stupid, hurtful things." She wrung her hands, as if gathering her courage, and finally managed to get the words out. "Lucas, can we go back to the way things were? I promise I'll be different. Can we please start over? Lucas, I can't live without you." The confession seemed to drain all the energy from her. But before I could respond, a sharp, mocking female voice cut in from beside me. Well, if it isn't the famous Miss Vanderbilt." Olivia froze and turned toward the voice. It was Chloe. She had appeared at some point, dressed in a sharp business suit, clearly here to pick me up. Standing with her arms crossed, she had none of her former childish innocence. She advanced on us, her high heels clicking, her aura one of elegant intimidation as she sized Olivia up with an openly critical gaze. A smirk played on Chloe's red lips. "What's the matter, Miss Vanderbilt? Have you had your fun with all your little toys, and now you want my brother to come clean up your mess?" My brother gave you his entire heart. He treated you like a queen and protected you from everything. And how did you repay him? You threw it all away for a waiter. Now that you've realized those other men are worthless, you suddenly remember how good my brother was to you. Life doesn't work that way, Olivia. Right now, if my brother told me he wanted the moon, I'd find a way to get it for him. Why would he ever go back for something that was thrown away like trash? The word struck Olivia like a physical blow. The color drained from her face, and she stumbled back a step. She looked at me, her eyes filled with remorse. Lucas, I was just confused for a little while. I see clearly now. You're the only one I can't let go of. You still have feelings for me too, don't you? I just waved a dismissive hand, my voice calm and cold. Olivia, we broke up. There's no need to say any of this. Chloe, let's go. Okay. Chloe chirped, immediately linking her arm through mine, her tone turning cheerful and affectionate. Lucas, the car is waiting. I had the kitchen make all your favorites. Let's go home. I nodded, letting her lead me away. We walked right past Olivia, who stood frozen in place, and I didn't bother to give her a second glance. Later, at the familiar Walton mansion, the lights were blazing, and the air was filled with the delicious aroma of a home-cooked meal. Chloe efficiently served me food, chattering on about how heartless Olivia had been and how she didn't know how to appreciate anything. I listened, making a few comments here and there, but as I ate, I started to feel dizzy. My consciousness began to fade. I struggled to keep my heavy eyelids open, and the last thing I saw was Chloe's face, leaning in close, her smile both sweet and devious. When I woke up, my entire body ached. I opened my eyes and was hit with the immediate, horrifying realization of what had happened. A hot rage flared through me. Chloe, I roared. How could you? My shout startled her awake. She groggily rubbed her eyes, and upon seeing my thunderous expression, her gaze darted around guiltily. She immediately started to writhe under the covers, whining playfully. Lucas, I'm sorry. Please, just forgive me this once. Please. I had always been a sucker for her pleading. And unfortunately, after learning all my ruthless tricks, she knew exactly which buttons to push. At this point, I had two choices: cause a massive scene or accept my fate. I reluctantly chose the latter. 2 weeks later, Chloe and I were married. To most of the shareholders and our business partners, the news came as no surprise. After all, anyone could see that the fake heir was far more capable than the actual heir, Leo, who had proven to be a complete failure. In the world of high finance, profit is the only thing that matters. Marrying off their daughter to secure a brilliant moneymaker like me was, in their eyes, a guaranteed win. Mr. and Mrs. Walton, of course, felt very differently. The news of my engagement to Chloe sent them both to the hospital with shock. I made sure Leo went with them so he could attend his parents and, more importantly, so all three of them would be kept far away from my wedding. Out of sight, out of mind. On our wedding day, the hall was filled with cheers and applause loud enough to shake the rafters. In front of all our guests, Chloe and I exchanged rings and vows. I spotted Olivia in a corner of the ballroom. She was dressed in an elegant gown, but looked utterly desolate. She gave her gift to an attendant and then slipped out of the joyful reception, her retreating figure a portrait of loneliness. The years flew by. 7 years later, under my and Chloe's joint leadership, the Walton Group had expanded into an empire. We had secured our position as the unshakable leader in our industry. With our careers stable and our home life happy, we finally decided to step back from the intense pace of our work and have a child. When Chloe became pregnant, I took over all her duties at the company so she could stay home and rest. One morning, I was sitting in the CEO's chair when my secretary brought in my daily schedule. I glanced over it and my eyes stopped on one appointment. It was a partnership meeting that afternoon with the Vanderbilt Group. Their chief representative was listed as Olivia Vanderbilt. At the scheduled time, the conference room doors opened and Olivia entered, surrounded by her team. 7 years had passed. She had lost some of her youthful willfulness and gained a mature, professional confidence. But deep in her eyes, I could still see a persistent, sorrowful gloom. When she saw me sitting at the head of the table, A flicker of shock crossed her face, but she quickly composed herself and slipped into a professional demeanor. She presented her proposal mechanically, though her eyes occasionally, involuntarily, drifted toward me. The meeting concluded in that tense, awkward atmosphere. I stood and politely escorted Olivia and her team to the lobby. As we reached the main entrance, a familiar figure caught my eye. Chloe was standing there waiting for me, smiling and holding a thermos. Her belly was now slightly rounded, her pregnancy obvious. When Olivia saw her, the color drained from her face as if all the strength had been sucked out of her. She turned and walked away, a picture of utter despair. I walked over to Chloe and took the thermos from her. "Why aren't you resting at home?" I grumbled. "What are you doing here?" She just smiled and linked her arm through mine. "I'm only 2 months along, Lucas. I'm not made of glass. Besides, I came to bring you some soup." She glanced in the direction Olivia had gone. "That was Olivia, wasn't it?" she asked. I nodded. "Yes, it was just business. Don't worry, that was over a long time ago." Chloe's tone was surprisingly casual. "Oh, I'm not jealous. When we were kids, I used to call her sister-in-law. I always thought of us as one big family. I was only angry later because of how badly she treated you. But seeing her today, honestly, I don't feel that anger anymore. If you get a chance, you should talk to her. Help her out if you can." I looked at my wife, a mix of emotions swirling inside me, and sighed. "All right, if the opportunity comes up, I'll talk to her. But whether she can move on is up to her. In any case," I said, looking down at her belly, "our life is already heading toward happiness." This story is a powerful reminder that while life may often feel like a script written for us, our true power lies not in playing an assigned role, but in daring to rewrite it entirely. The protagonist's awakening comes from realizing his greatest inheritance isn't a prestigious family name, but a mind capable of understanding, leveraging, and ultimately transcending the rules of the game. He demonstrates that real assets are not given but cultivated. The courage to walk away from a gilded cage, the strategic foresight to turn adversity into advantage, and the wisdom to invest in oneself. By rejecting his destiny as a pawn, he becomes the master of his own fate, proving that when the script can no longer bind you, you become the sole author of your own unique masterpiece.